You know how it is when you've been to a museum. Think of when you went as a tourist to visit somewhere like Paris and you went to the Louvre and you went around from room to room concentrating on beautiful pictures and objects of art and all these colors and people pressing against you, crowds of people and walking. Sometimes 2 hours and you feel as though you're going to die. Your feet ache. Visually, you're extremely exhausted. You're taking in a lot of information. Trinidad exhausts you like that in Carnival. And it's worse. It's 10 times worse. The rhythm of those steel bands, the drums, even after everything's stopped, you can hear it. Your heart is beating like this.
The steel drum is the latest innovation in Trinidad's rich musical history. It is the pulse of the island's annual carnival and a distinctive voice of the large West Indian community that has grown up in New York City. Here, some of the finest makers and players of steel drums have worked to develop the instrument while absorbing the city's many musical influences. The great skill of these drum makers and the unique qualities of the instrument have been recognized by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which recently included the steel drum in its musical instrument collection. Carnival in Trinidad reflects the rich culture and varied national origins of its people. Claimed for Spain by Christopher Columbus in 1498, Trinidad became a favorite stop for explorers in the Caribbean.
When Sir Walter Raleigh came to Trinidad, he stopped to caulk his ships. His ships had made a long journey all the way from the old world down to Trinidad. And they were in need of repair, and the Indians knew how to do it. They had their boats. They were traveling on the sea, on rough water in the Atlantic and in the Caribbean. And they said, well, you want your boat fixed? Come, I'll show you. And they took him down to the pitch lake. And you can caulk ships with asphalt and, compounds of stones and things like you put on the road. Now, a lot of the asphalt on your roads is from my country. And it's still being used. It's still dug up. And the oil is a cousin of the asphalt. It's in all the same area, in the south part of Trinidad.
Early French immigrants brought Carnival, a series of festivities between Christmas and Lent. The French influence is evident in the older calypso songs.
Un jour lundi matin, ma coqueliche tombait malade. Fini chercher l'abbé pour bailler l'extrême onction. Quand l'abbé arrivé, ma coqueliche domine sa couleur rhum, ma coqueliche d'ici c'est rhum, Mr. l'abbé, bas-moi sans l'eau, Mr. l'abbé, bas-moi sans l'eau.
African slaves brought by the French and East Indian indentured servants imported by the British celebrated carnival season with their own traditions, which included skin drums and other rhythm instruments. With the British emancipation in 1838, freed slaves took to the streets in wild celebration, and Carnival, as we know it today, a street parade was born.
From the calypso, depending on the lyrics, whether the people like it, whether it gets very popular, we get what we call a road march. Because a road march is basically a popular song, popular calypso that they used to dance in the streets to, because the lyrics are nice and the tune especially is very, very good. Because when you're dancing in the streets, you're dancing for hours. The sun is hot, it's 85, 90 degrees beating down on you. You're drinking rum straight from bottles, you're just passing the bottles around, and you're actually dancing for miles. A masquerade band is sometimes made up of 1,000 people strong, pressing on each other, because you have to keep near enough to the music, and it's the rhythm that you have to keep up with. Once you slacken the rhythm, it's like, you know how prisoners break stones to a song. You need that song to keep on dancing. You're dancing for miles. You're as drunk as a lord. The sun is as hot as hell. You're in a costume. Sometimes the costume's 50 pounds. You're carrying it.
The instruments used to maintain the carnival tempo have changed over the years. When the British outlawed skin drums in 1883, fearing their use in voodoo, the Tambu Bamboo Band was formed, using different sizes and lengths of bamboo. These bands were also outlawed when rival gangs used the sticks as weapons. Carnival players picked up whatever was on hand, including brake drums. Some inventive players found the potential for melody in bent metal strips, then heard notes in cans and buckets. Experiments by Ellie Mannette, a young machinist at the time, led to a musical instrument unique in sound and design. Today, Ellie lives and works in Queens, New York.
This small drum I have here is really a picture of what this original steel drum of today came from.
Starting with a bucket drum, Ellie found a way to isolate and tune individual notes, giving it the potential for melody and the form it has today.
Very different song. When I came in, the drums were all up in the convex. I looked at it and I said to myself, no way in the world I can tune this any way like this. So some instinct I had, I tapped my drum down, as it was just now.
Sinking the pan, putting the groove around each section, and raising each section by punging it up from below. These three steps are now basic to all steel drum construction.
One of the guys in the islands by the name of Winston Spree Simon, he managed to get true melody coming from one of these drums. And he played a little melody, like a nursery rhyme. So I felt, okay, if this guy can get a melody, I can do the same. So we tried tuning melody, notes that can correspond with each other. I came to the awareness that no way in the world I can get the quality of song I want on this size instrument. So I got a little larger size. From this size, we went to the 35-gallon size. On that 35-gallon size, which in the year of 1941, we managed to get about 9 notes.
During World War II, the U.S. Navy brought many 55-gallon drums to Trinidad. In 1946, Ellie introduced the first full-size pan at a major steel drum competition.
Yeah. So I played it, and then the whole audience was very surprised and amazed to hear the drum for the first time, and to see it made, So for that matter.
Other pan makers, including Anthony Williams and Neville Jules, joined Ellie in developing the full range of steel drums, 5.5 octaves. Precise tuning of a pan requires great skill with a hammer and many years of trial and error. Ellie is widely known for his fine tuning abilities.
On a note like this, for instance, you will listen to F sharp, and above that F sharp you get another F sharp, and again. You hear careful, pretty plain up here. And above that one you have to have another F sharp, which is a. When we are finished tuning, we have to correspond the related harmonic on the side related to the other side of the other note. And this has to be precisely tuned in between here. And only then you can get the quality you hear on this instrument. For instance, each of those two notes are carrying 10 vibrations because each note carries 5. When I say 5, you have 3 octaves and 2 fifths on each note. So every time you play 2 notes like that, you get 10 notes coming joined together, so it appears to have an amplified sound. But the steel drum carries tremendous amount of vibrations all over the metal and also the rim. When you play one note like an E, you will get this entire barrel going to the extent that if you try to hold it here, you will eliminate half of the song because the vibration is not as free.
Well, on the tenors was 4 tenors playing, 5, which is Andrew, Simon Spree, Ellie Mannette was playing leads, and myself and Theodore Stevens Hidden was playing alto, whereas these two was playing...
Francis Haynes and Ellie Mannette were both members of TASPO, the government-sponsored Trinidad all-steel percussion orchestra.
That was the first band to
leave Trinidad as an organized band from the whole country. The force of the steel drum players in the days was stronger than the force of the whole, actually, the middle class and the tops. The only thing they really could have done was to kill us out. And they didn't want that. That action was too harsh. So they compromised and they let us go to England, and from there, more or less, well, if you played steel drums in the early days, which we had a lot of gentlemen in the steel drum bands that went to college, you deemed no good because you're playing a steel drum player. But right now you represent the country.
It was a steel band that brought Francis to New York in the 1950s. Here he sets up pans on a rolling frame that the Harlem All-Stars will use in the Brooklyn Labor Day Parade.
Well, you don't have to want to learn to play as a kid in Trinidad. When you want to play, you get up in the morning and go in the yard and start to play. So when the kids want to play, we don't stop them. You come in the yard and you start to play from a kid, you keep on playing. And we pick out the best ones and put them in the group. As I think you know, music is different vibrations. You have tunes that if you play tunes, it could cause war. Which we play tunes, and when we play certain tunes, we have to stop them because people, with the rhythm, people get into such a frenzy that they keep on getting ready and they jump so much that they're ready to fight. Whereas the classic holds them down. Because if you're playing everybody go like this, but if you play they're going like this, and when you're going like this, the least thing, anything could happen. It goes like that in a flash and everything explodes. The classical rhythm will not give you as much vibrations to throw out that amount of energy. You'll be more receiving and listening and relaxed. Whereas the real carnival spirit is go and get everything off for you. When Carnival finishes, you must be able to just to fall out.
In the 1950s, Trinidad captured the attention of many Americans when the calypso became popular. Musician Pete Seeger took a special interest in the music.
28 years ago, I saw the dancer Jeffrey Holder with 3 magical men accompanying him on steel pans. I'd never seen them before. I fell in love with the instrument. So a few years later, 1955 to be precise, 56 I guess, I took a small 16mm camera down to Trinidad and wandered down the street looking for somebody who could show me a pan being made.
There in a backyard were a group of teenagers. They called themselves the Highlanders Steel Band, and they were rehearsing for the Carnival parade just 1 month away. In other corners of the yard were men hammering on drums, making them. The leader's name is Kim Loy Wong. His father is Chinese, his mother Negro, his wife East Indian. That's kind of an all-Trinidad combination.
He was non-committal with me. After all, he just met me. And some tall white man wanting to take a moving picture of a steel pan. But finally we got to know each other better, and he agreed to make me some pans. The reason I like them, I confess it's hard to put in words. How can you say, why does a person like a musical instrument? It's exciting, it's interesting, it's thrilling. But I think I could say that I was also intrigued by where they came from, how they were invented, and the whole symbolism of it really hit home to me. Here was a piece of tin that was destined for the garbage dump, perhaps. Tin of the garbage can, or later on the oil drum, and brake drums, all these things, and make what I think is one of the world's greatest musical instruments.
They're making 6 pans for me to take back to the United States. What I wanted to do is this. I want to, not just to thank you, because thanks is not enough for all the things that Trinidad has given the United States and the world, but I'd like to give you my pledge that wherever I go with these pans, I'll tell the true story of Trinidad as true as I can tell it. And as you know, I can only be here about 1 day more, but your pans will be playing, I hope, all through the United States.
I wish instead of taking up the pans, you take me up instead of the pans. Put me in the box instead of the pans. I and Renner could like to go up to the United States, you see?
Someday, we'll work towards it. Okay.
With the help of Pete Seeger and Folkways Records, Kim Loy came to the United States to teach in schools, camps, and settlement houses. His workshop at University Settlement on New York's Lower East Side has been a center for makers and players of steel drums.
I've been using here as my workshop for years. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this at my house. This is where I make all my noise.
From in there?
Yeah, right in here.
Kim Loy makes drums for a camp run by some New York City firemen. They, in turn, keep him supplied with empty oil drums.
Oh, you can play chords, right?
Yeah, I just play.
I used to play when I had the percussion.
I just play a couple of chords.
Don't practice it anymore, you ready?
Yeah.
And especially classical music, because I think it sounds so beautiful. I want to hear the ending of the song. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4 and C, A, G. That's your C there, you know. But you have started from A. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4 and C, A, G. You play that for me, let me hear. C, A, no. Play C, A, G, E, C.
C, A, G.
Alright, well you just leave that part like that, okay, for you. Alright, let's go now. You come that way. Go ahead, go on. That's good. Alright. Okay, that's it. When the saints is marching in, when the saints go marching in, oh Lord, I want to be F in that number 2 times on F. When the saints go marching. Okay, that's it, that's good. Okay, take care. See you Wednesday. Huh? Sure, Wednesday.
The people who has done the work, as I mentioned, from 46 to this time, are more or less on their way out. When I say out, they are over up at a certain age, and they are not 15 years anymore. And the young guys who are coming up, if they have the basic training into this field, I don't think they will ever be able to improve the quality of instrument after we are gone.
There are a number of young pan makers who were responding to Ellie's concern. Vincent Taylor is one of the finest.
I learned to play first before I started making, which took me over 5 years and just simply learning to play.
In 1974, Lawrence Libin, head of the musical instrument collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, was pleased to acquire a set of his double tenor drums.
Mr. Taylor did bring them and set them up and showed them to me, and from the point of view of design and of tone quality, of beauty of sound, I was very impressed indeed, and very happy to add them to the collection for that reason.
And I learned by watching other makers and trial and error. You know, I tuned over 100 drums before I made one halfway decent. I mean, 100 barrels I went through, and I'm still learning a lot of things about the instrument and the art form.
These are the only instruments now in the collection that are made by a living maker. In every other case that I can think of, and we have about 4,000 instruments, every single object is made by someone who was unfortunately long deceased. Many of the instruments are antiques of quite great age. A lot of them come from the 19th century or the turn of the 20th century. But these are our only instruments by modern living maker, and they have a certain importance for that reason also. Partly because we have a unique opportunity here to learn from the maker how he made them, why he made them, the whole constellation of social events and technical processes that go into the making of a musical instrument.
Are they made in different sizes, though, for use in a band? How many do you ordinarily have in an ensemble of these?
Let me see. I'd say around 7 or 8 pieces.
7 or 8 pairs, or 7 or 8 individual ones?
7 or 8 players, but not pairs. They come like, matter of fact, 6 whole drums. That's the bass player. So he would have 6 bars.
Because he only has a couple of notes on each one.
Like 3 or 4 on each one. And then you have cellos, which comes with 3 bars. And then you have These are double tenors, which are formerly called piano pans, and you have single leads, which comes in with one surface, which has
The full range of steel drums is demonstrated by Michael Scanterbury. He starts with the single lead pan.
At all times. Sounds like this. Next we have the double tenors that plays a counter melody. Sometimes it plays a melody. Sounds like this. Next in line we have the double seconds. Plays the chords. Sometimes it plays counter melody. It's the third pan between the double tenor and the guitars. Sounds like this. That's it. Next we have the guitars. It's called a sweep pan. Next we have the cellos, which is somewhat like the guitar. It's just cut deeper and has a different sound. Anyway, this is how it sounds. That's it. That's really sticks on well. Now we have the tenor bass next, which is somewhat like the bass. It is cut shorter, has a finer tone than the actual sixth bass. This. That's the tenor bass. And when we get to the big one, the big daddy of them all, it's what you call the deep bass. 6 of them. Sounds like this. And that makes up a steel band.
Michael arranges for the nebulized steel band, rehearsing in Brooklyn for an appearance in Philadelphia.
You understand? I will go from. Everybody again. 1, 2. I was talking to Jackie then. 1, 2, same part. 1, 2, 3. I'm into this so much, I might as well have a band of my own. That has been my lifelong dream, to have a band of my own.
I'm the arranger and I have two of my brothers plus my sister. Then we have Tina plus her sister who plays the bass. Then we have Wendell, Warren, Harry, Norbert. They're not related, I mean family-wise, but the way they get together, it's like a family, and this is something that's beautiful in this band, which you won't find in a lot of bands. And I think together we're gonna go places.
Marion Scanterbury, Michael's mother, reminisces about her family and the early days of steel drums in Trinidad.
Well, we were probably lucky. It was a tent right next door to where we were living. And the boys used to go there. They were small then, but they used to, try their hands at the band. Okay. Well, they practiced every night.
All the bands?
There's where they bring in the calypsonians. You know, when the calypsonians compose a tune, the boys get together, the band get together, and they work on it. Well, they try to beat that tune that was composed, and it goes on until the end of the carnival. Monday and Tuesday, they call it Mardi Gras. It's great what they did with the pan. I'm telling you. But the experience I had, because when they just started, it was nothing. And I think everybody was against the boys because they were saying, it's only a boy who really wasn't interested in life would think about, going down to that. But the way they reach now, I think it could compete with any other thing. Yeah, it's right. The steel band's come a long, long way. And I'm glad.
So you've really seen people...
That is called, you make something out of nothing. It's why I would term the steel band. Because those drums were lying around there, nobody had any use for them. Yeah. And they're actually making them talk, as far as I could see. Yeah. At first, the first time that I really take Carnival into consideration, I thought it was crazy. I said it's crazy, but it's sweet. It's crazy, crazy, and sweet, sweet. I didn't know how to describe it.
The spirit of Carnival is felt in New York at the annual West Indian American Day celebration held in Brooklyn on Labor Day weekend. Over 1.5 million people attend the festival, complete with competitions, parades, and concerts. Charlene Victor of the Brooklyn Arts and Cultural Association describes the event.
Association. And they used to have their parades in various places, and then as it progressed, they came to the Brooklyn Museum because they wanted to use a large place because the West Indian Day Parade is not a one-day affair. They wanted to pattern it after Trinidad, exactly, because Brooklyn has the largest West Indian population outside of the island, and it was only natural that it be held in Brooklyn. The nights before, on Friday night, they start with the steel drum competition, and they come from all over. They come from Canada, they come from Detroit, they come from the islands, and they have the steel drum competition that night with entertainment. Some of the greatest entertainers in the world, Lord Kitchener, the Mighty Sparrow, and the Singing Francine, and it is jump-up time. As far as your eye can see, 25 blocks long, there is you see a bobbing mass of wall-to-wall people.
For the rest of the year, fans of the steel band music can go to the many record stores specializing in the Caribbean sound, or listen to the radio stations which broadcast calypso music.
Return to WBNX, New York. The steel band is from Trinidad and Tobago. steel band is from Trinidad and Tobago.
As the steel drum works its way into the American culture, we are finding pop, jazz, Latin, and rock musicians experimenting with the sound. WNEW disc jockey Vin Scalza discusses the use of steel drums in popular music.
I was into listening to rock and roll, and there are a couple of rock and rollers who are using the steel drum in a very interesting way. Taj Mahal, I guess, is the most well-known of the kind of rock and roll music musicologist is what Taj Mahal really is. He started out as a blues rock and roller back in the 60s and could have been, I guess, one of the big superstars if he had wanted to, but instead of doing that, he decided to go back to roots in his music, and his roots were both in African music, in the music that came out of slavery and the music that came out of the transplanted Africans in America, and also other black forms of music. So one of the things that he began touching on a few years ago was the steel drum, going down to Trinidad and checking out what that was all about and hiring local musicians to play on his records. And while the music that he was doing was basically still steel drum music, he was also implementing it with Western electric rock and roll instruments, with the electric bass and the electric guitar and drums, so that he was combining these two forms and introducing, in a sense, the instrument to a lot of people who had never heard it before. So that now what you have are people like Phoebe Snow and Billy Joel and a lot of different pop groups are taking the instrument and utilizing it generally in the same fashion as traditional steel drum music. In other words, it's still a kind of a rhythm instrument, and it's still being used for that sound, that sound of the islands that it conjures up whenever we hear it. I mean, you're walking down Fifth Avenue, and there's a guy 2 blocks away from St. Pat's, and he's in some beautiful little hallway somewhere, and he's playing his drum. It conjures up this incredible sound for you that means going to the islands, you know. But what Phoebe Snow and Billy Joel and people like that are doing is taking it and using it in a bit more subtle way than that. So that while the sound, we still associate that sound with the islands, we're beginning to realize, I think the musicians are beginning to realize, that you can use it as a rhythm instrument, as a harmonic instrument, as a background instrument, in a very North American rock and roll Western sort of way, as opposed to simply that Caribbean island sort of way. And I think that's the direction that the instrument is going in now.
Due to the interest and perseverance of individual high school and college band leaders, steel band music has grown and spread in some of the most unlikely places. Northern Illinois University's steel band recently recorded an album in New York.
It's so unusual in the Midwest and even in a lot of other places. I find out that it's just mushrooming like crazy. The school children especially really have a good time with it. So we've been performing all over the place. And it's just out there as sort of an extra alternative to the percussion students. The people that are in the group are all my percussion students, and I like to see that they have an opportunity to find and play and hear as many different kinds of musical styles as possible. That's why it's there.
The Horace Greeley High School Band uses pans especially designed by Ellie, Mannette, and the director Jim Layton.
There are problems with steel drums, and right now they're all handmade. There's been some attempt, I understand, in England to stamp out this basic shape, but it doesn't work because the metal doesn't respond unless it's hammered, stroke at a time. So when somebody gets to that point where they develop a jig which will take out that hard labor, and you get down to just the shaping and tuning for the human to do, I think then you're going to get somewhere. The next problem is that people like Ellie and those who make drums, and there are 3 or 4 good drum makers in this country, I understand, if they would get together and train some people, and it's very difficult because it just isn't that easy. For kids starting out with a traditional background, they want to know that this distance to that, it should be, should make sense musically. So we redesigned the pan so that we could get this kind of, well, what do you want to, I will say order. They had their own order, but this works for us so that all scales have the same shape. So we played through Romania. This summer we're going to Poland and to Russia, and for a week or 10 days in each country. And I don't know where we'll be playing. We're going with other musical groups, and there's sort of a tour, a circuit that these various groups make. And you play concerts in whatever they have, churches or concert halls or the Bierstubes or the open streets. The open streets are kind of fun because, especially with steel drums, they travel, the sound travels very well outside. It's an open air instrument, it's just marvelous. And the people come and they, their eyes are really wide open because it really is such an exciting instrument, and the music is quite unfamiliar to them on this kind of instrument.
Many New Yorkers only hear steel drums on the street. Vincent Taylor often plays for them outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Inside the museum in the musical instrument storeroom, Lawrence Libben talks about steel drums and their relation to other instruments.
Steel drums belong to a family of musical instruments known as idiophones, which means self-sounding instruments. People discovered a very long time ago that natural materials of various sorts, even some kinds of rock and crystal, can be just picked up and made to ring just by hitting them. Here's a slab of gneiss, which is a kind of volcanic rock, which just occurs in nature in several parts of the world. And it has a curious property of ringing if it's struck in the right place in the right way. It's not very loud, but it's a very pretty sound. Now, the trouble with making instruments out of this sort of rock is that you can't always count on finding the right piece at the right time. You can't plan ahead, in other words, if you want to make an instrument. It much depends on luck. Now, with the beginning of the Bronze Age, and bronze culture seems to have begun in Southeast Asia long before it did in the Western world, people took the idea of sonorous materials, and instead of using naturally occurring things, they began to use metal or glass or porcelain, something man-made that could be made to a particular size. The gong, which as a family originates probably in Southeast Asia, is an outgrowth of this kind of instrument here, except that it has a different tone, which is a result partly of its shape and thickness and size. And people discovered that since these gongs can be tuned to a particular pitch, it was possible to take several gongs of different pitches and put them together in a set and then play melodies on the set. Because obviously this kind of instrument here only plays one note, not so useful. But if you take a bunch of these or a bunch of these and put them all in a group around a player or give one to each of several players, it's possible to play real music on it, not just rhythmic effects. Now, the principle of individual objects, each giving off a different pitch, combined as a set, was evidently first developed in Southeast Asia and Indonesia, where today people still play that sort of instrument in the gamelans and other sorts of ensembles. This is an example of such an instrument used in Burmese orchestra. This is called a sarong, and it's an instrument used in the gamelan, which is an ensemble of instruments, many of which are made of individual slabs of metal, bronze in this case. And just as in the stone instrument that I just showed you, each slab of bronze here is tuned to produce a separate pitch. A very lovely sound indeed. Now, instruments of this sort, comprised of separate individual slabs, whether of metal or of wood or of some other material, were brought to Africa, evidently, over the Indian Ocean very many years ago by people on boats who evidently followed the ocean current and drifted towards East Africa. The principle then was taken up by Africans who made the slabs of wood and came up with the xylophone, which seems to be a development or an outgrowth of these Indonesian instruments and Southeast Asian instruments. Now, the xylophone in turn spread all over Africa, gradually by a process of osmosis being brought over to the other side, to West Africa. And from West Africa, in fairly recent times, within the last 200, 300 years, blacks coming over to our hemisphere brought this principle with them. And it seemed to have taken root in Trinidad, in the islands around that area. And this forms then the basis of the steel drum. Whereas instruments of this type are made of separate slabs, in a steel drum, for the first and only time, in one body, one object, many different pitches can be produced because the object itself can be segmented and each little segment tuned to its own pitch. And this is an innovation which I think we must owe to the master builders of Trinidad and the other areas in the islands where the steel drums developed. It's a novel concept, and I don't believe it's been spread to any other instruments so far. But it's a very elegant solution to a problem.
As the steel drum makers continue to refine their instrument, pan players expand their musical abilities and the popular appeal of their music. The steel band Bamboo hopes to reach a wide audience with its contemporary Latin jazz sound.